And so, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the West Coast offense. As always, I'm Lucas Stackpole, joined by Bob Hauk, Bob from Philly, and Peter Papalardo. The team under the microscope today is the New York Mets. They come into today's episode at 33 and 41, still fifth in the National League East, but they are only 13 and a half games out of first place. They did make up two games. They won a big series against the Braves. They took two out of three from the Braves. Nicely done to make up some ground there. They are 5 and 5 in their last 10 games, and they are an even 4 and 4 since we recorded our last show.
Well, could be worse.
They're
Definitely
treading
could be
water.
worse.
I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
like when
that's
teams tread water when they need to make up time or make up wins. But overall, like you said, it could be worse. This is already better than they looked before, so anything is a positive from what we were seeing before. So yeah, it's improvements, I suppose.
and so I mean, treading water is the perfect summary for the Mets in the month of June. I mean, we've been harping on really the two episodes we've done this month. We've been harping on how important it is that the Mets not only tread water, find a way to make up ground, which on a technicality they have. They beat the Braves, took two out of three, which is huge for them and exactly what they need to do. But the rest of the month, I mean, they're 5.5 games out of that final National League wild card spot. They're 7 and 8 in the month of June. There's a three-way tie for that final National League wild card spot. The Padres, the Cubs, and the Nationals are all tied for that final spot. And eventually, I mean, it's still early. It's still the middle of June. And if we're running out of time to say it's still early, but right now I think it's fair to say it still is. But I mean, eventually it becomes an issue of not how many games back you are of that last spot. It becomes an issue of how many teams are in front of you. And right now, I mean, I think that issue is starting to creep up on the Mets. I mean, again, it's still early. I don't think we have to worry about that just yet. But again, there are six teams outside of the playoff picture currently ahead of the Mets. I mean, we touched on the Cubs and Nationals by way of the tiebreaker. They are technically out of the playoff picture. So that's already two contenders. And then they are behind the Diamondbacks, the Pirates, the Marlins, and the Reds. So they are 7 and 8 in the month of June, which is not bad. But for a team that desperately needs to start making up ground, I mean, I think it could be a lot better.
Yeah, and treading water's good enough. They do need to definitely do more before they have too many teams above them that they have to overcome and have to worry about other teams doing worse in order for them to even have a shot. But I'll just say this: they're treading water, and that's more than I can do in the water. So
Pretty niche reference there. I like that one, Pete. Given the fact that the Knicks just won the championship, I really don't think anyone in New York cares at all about what the Mets are doing. So treading water is fine enough because the fans aren't there. They're not paying attention. Everyone is breaking stuff and going buck wild today in Times Square for the parade. So nevertheless, Mets just keep doing what the Mets do.
So, I mean, I think the priorities right now in New York, you're definitely right, lie with the other blue and orange team. But again, I mean, treading water is really the perfect description for how the month of June has been. I mean, again, we touched on it. They're 7 and 8. They lost two of three in Seattle to open the month, then won two of three in San Diego, lost two of three at home to St. Louis, won two of three against Atlanta. Home, sorry, that series was at home, not in Atlanta. And then they lost two of three at Cincinnati. That's been their most recent series. So, I mean, again, 7 and 8 is respectable. It could be so much worse, especially considering how daunting this June schedule has been for the Mets. But I mean, again, at some point, you have to stop treading water and start moving forward. I'm not sure we're at that point yet, but I think we're going to get to that point before the end of the month, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But again, I mean, treading water is fine. It's as simple as treading water is fine until it's not. And right now, where the Mets are, June 18th, treading water is still okay. But again, I mean, it's like we've been saying all month. Eventually, the Mets are going to have to kick it into gear. 5.5 games is a completely reasonable deficit to make up. It's still the middle of June. I believe that the Mets might catch fire in the second half. I think the Mets certainly have the talent to catch fire in the second half. But eventually, you got to be proactive about it. You got to start helping yourself out, and you can't really rely on other teams to start losing.
they do have to lock in a little bit. And I honestly, personally think that they need to have the sense of urgency now. They need to start now. The end of the month is in like less than 2 weeks. It's gonna come quicker than than you think, and they can't be planning on starting to get rolling come that time. They need to be already rolling now, and it also depends on how other teams are doing. The last thing the Mets want to have to deal with, if they can avoid it, is worrying about other teams needing other teams to lose games in order for them to have a shot. You hate that's a terrible feeling because that's something that's out of your control. What's in their control right now is winning ball games now.
Good way to put it.
And I mean, yeah, Pete, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, you can't, the Mets want to be in a position to be able to control their own destiny. That's the best place to be as a baseball team, whether you're trying to win the division or whether you're solidly in one of those three wild card spots. But being able to control your own destiny is the most comfortable place to be for a baseball team. And right now, the Mets aren't there. Getting there is feasible. I mean, they have the talent. I'm not going to say they have the schedule, but I mean, the Mets, if you look at the roster on paper, if that's a team that puts it all together, that is certainly a team capable of winning games. And I mean, obviously, the Mets right now, 8 games under 500, winning a baseball game, even if you're good on paper, is a lot easier to say than to do. So, I mean, I think it's just been fine. I think fine is the good word for it. I mean, 7-8 is not bad. I mean, there are 162 baseball games. And for as hard as this June schedule has been for the Mets, 7-8 is respectable. But again, I mean, if you're a team that's 8 games under 500, eventually you have to start moving forward.
Absolutely. I'm wondering if it's worthwhile to just continue treading water to the All Star break, or if they need to incline into the All Star break. That's the question that I would have.
I think you need to be on the uptick at the All-Star break because I think treading water to the All-Star break, I think should be the bottom line. I think that should be the lowest bar. Like I think the Mets should at least tread water until the All-Star break. Like I'm not saying that's what you should settle for. Obviously, if you're the Mets, you want to start winning baseball games. You want to start making up ground in both the division and the playoff picture. But I mean, again, if the Mets are treading water to the All-Star break, I think at the very least it's not the end of the world.
I think it was just be, for me at least, I always see the All Star break is like you just take a hammer and just start smashing the league with it, and then things just go all over the place. So I get worried by the All Star break. So in my opinion, I think getting too good too quick before the All Star break could create issues where if they get too long of a break, then they're coming back, they're not as hot because they've been off from baseball for what, 2 weeks or something like that. So it could be, it's a double edged sword, I guess. Not to ramble too long, but I eventually at some point they're gonna have to stop just treading water and start actually swimming. So I think that's about where it's at.
Not to directly oppose you, Bob, but I also think at the same time it would be really valuable for them to at least go on a run going into the All Star break, just because obviously those wins will add up come the end of the year, and every win matters. I do agree with you that the All Star break can screw everything up. So if they get hot and then go into the All Star break and then just they could just lose it coming out of it. But at the same time, who's to say they don't get hot, go into the All Star break and find a way to get hot again or continue being hot coming out of the All Star break. It's completely random. It's just and it's hard to control that kind of a thing. It's just something that they have that they just have to deal with being off from baseball for weeks and then coming back into it. But I mean, I do think that treading water would be fine, but it would be nice to get every win that you can get going into the All Star break.
And I agree with both of you guys. I mean, both of you guys make really sound points. I mean, the first example that comes to mind is because I mean the All Star break can stunt momentum. I'm thinking of last season, the Red Sox won 10 in a row going into the All Star break. I mean, we caught fire right before the All Star break, and they're like, "Does the All Star break really have to happen right now?" So I mean, definitely the All Star break does kill momentum. I don't want to say it kills momentum, but it can definitely stunt it because I mean, again, if you're hot and then the All Star break, you're not playing games for a week, 10 days, that definitely slows things up a little bit. But Pete, to your point, I mean, you want to win as much as you can before the All-Star break. Like if the Mets catch fire before the All-Star break and then the All-Star break happens, I mean, I think the Mets are going to be totally fine with that. And Bob, I mean, it's like you said about taking a hammer to the rest of the league. It's taking a hammer to your lineup, seeing out or figuring out what works, what doesn't. You know, you factor in your first half before what you do in the second half. And I think the Mets have the perfect chance to put themselves in that position. Like, even if they're not in first place, even if they're not in the playoff picture by the All Star break, you can at the very least be trending up. Like, you want to give your guys something to build off of.
Yeah, I like both your points there. I'm not saying that they need to not be winning. Obviously, it's I think the point is that it's far better to be in a good spot where it's like, okay, we've been winning ball games, we can take a break and we can just build on that rather than we keep losing, we can't figure out how to win, we have to figure that out in less than 10 days. So that's where my head would be at least going forward with this not dysfunctional, but also not overly functional team at the moment.
No, yeah, I mean that's the story of the Mets season. I mean, I'm not going to call the Mets a bad baseball team, but they certainly have not been a good one.
Riding the line of mediocrity, apparently.
And you can you give, and that's been our point the entire month of June. Is mediocre is fine until it isn't.
Absolutely. You
It's,
get it gets to a point. You get tired of it.
and so the Mets, coming off of a series loss in Cincinnati, they lost 2 of 3 at Great American Ballpark. On June 16th, that would have been Tuesday, Kodai Senga returned from the injured list, lit up the radar gun, but he didn't really do much else. In his first start since April 26th, he goes only 4 innings, 2 hits, 4 earned runs, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts, and gave up 2 home runs.
Hmm. Is the ghost back? I don't know. One of my favorite things about Kodai Senga is my dad always complains about him, and he's like, man, I just don't get it with this ghost ball thing, man. Like, how do guys always swing and miss at it? How do they not just hit it? It's like, well, that's kind of the point of a breaking ball, but I just thought that was kind of funny. Anytime I think about Kodai Senga, I think of my dad complaining that baseball MLB hitters can't hit a splitter. But
I think they've been saying that about Mariano Rivera's cutter for 2 decades, and nobody could figure it out. So I don't know. I mean, there are just some pitches in baseball that are just unhittable, and his ghost fork might be one of them. I don't know.
how many small shelters could be built with the broken bats of Mariano Rivera's cutter? That is a good question.
The Twins built him a rocking chair of broken bats. That was pretty
That was pretty
cool.
cool. That was pretty sick. I do really like the over the top retirement tours where everyone's given crazy gifts to people.
Those are awesome. So bringing back into Kodai Senga, the hard part with Senga is he had a fantastic rookie season in 2023. I mean, he was an all-star. He was seventh in Cy Young voting. He was second in Rookie of the Year voting. Went 12-7 with a 2.98 ERA. Like that is a fantastic rookie season. That's a lot to build off of. But the hard part with Senga is he hasn't been healthy, and just that level of production has never really returned, which is hard because I mean we've had this talk with a lot of guys across all the shows we do. I mean they're capable of being talented, they're capable of performing as well as they have in the past, but they just can't really seem to get back to that place. I mean, and it's hard with Senga because he's obviously frequently injured. He's an IL frequenter. This past start on Tuesday was his first start since April. So I mean, it's just hard because for a team that is as pitching deprived as the Mets, I mean, you get a guy like Kodai Senga off the IL, a guy you know has a high ceiling, a guy you've seen perform well. And I mean, obviously, it's his first start back in almost 2 months. So I mean, you can't judge it too harshly. But I mean, again, the Mets pitching has struggled a lot, and for a guy you want to come back and be able to help, I'm worried, Senga might not be there anymore.
The hypothetical pitcher apparently is Kodai Senga the Justin Herbert of starting pitchers.
If man.
If he was healthy, would he be good? That is the dying question. But I think honestly, like when he has been good, he's been so unbelievably good that it's hard to really be like, well, eh, is it worth the time? It is so annoying though when you have a guy so good that's just always hurt. That's just the curse of Mets pitchers, I think. That's just the Met thing, it seems to be.
So again, I mean, despite the unassuming stat line, if there is one positive from that Mets game on Tuesday, he did top at 97.9 miles an hour. I mean, he's back off the injured list, first start in 2 months, reaches 98. He was sitting mid to low nines in his rehab starts. So the velocity, there's already an uptick. Obviously, velocity doesn't mean too much if you put up, if you walk 4 guys, give up 2 home runs. I mean, obviously, you're not doing yourself any favors there. But if absolutely nothing else, I mean, the velocity is there. And again, his first start in 2 months, hopefully he can put it together for his next couple.
Yeah, the first start off of rehab, I never put too much stock into it, but I will say the biggest worry I feel like is always their velo dipping when they come back. and seeing that it's very far from dipping. In fact, that's pretty up there for him, right? I believe
Yeah.
velo
Yeah, it was
wise. Yeah, that's
at the
like
very
normal.
least at the very least, it was higher than he was throwing even in his rehab starts in the minors.
Right, right. So I mean, I feel like with rehab starts, you're not really looking at just how well or coming off of rehab starts. You're not looking for him to be at his best game the second he comes back. It's more so just making sure his arm still has health in it and he can throw as hard as he usually does. And he'll hone in it's probably a command problem. He'll hone in his command problem come his next couple of starts. So just settling back in.
I feel
And I
like
think that's Bob.
the velo could be a little. Personally, I see velo as a little bit misleading because you can teach isn't the right word. You can retrain velo. You can work velo when the control is off, where he's giving 4 base on balls away. That's not what I want to be seeing. If he's averaging a walk per inning, I don't love that. It's a free pass every time he steps on the mound per inning, and that creates 4 earned runs. So that's literally every guy he led on base each inning is a run, which is bad. I don't want to see that. I mean, it would be cool to see him going out throwing 100. It doesn't matter if he's walking guys though. So honestly, I'm not that convinced by this outing. Not to like totally go off the rails, but I don't appreciate the command being this bad and him giving up 2 bombs. That's just not where we want to be at all.
And I mean, I think you both are exactly right. I mean, it starts with command. I mean, like you said, velocity, you can eventually work your way back up, but if you can't find the strike zone, I mean, you're just not going to be able to work yourself out of certain problems. I mean, we saw that on Tuesday, 2 hits to 4 walks. I mean, you can't walk more guys that you give up hits. I mean, hits are a part of the sport because that means you're throwing it the ball in the strike zone. I mean, the people on the other team are supposed to hit the ball. That's going to happen. But in this season, he's made 6 starts. He's 0-5. He has an ERA of 9, and his walks hits per innings pitched is at 1.875, which through 6 starts, obviously this season isn't over, but his next highest was last season, and the whip only then was 1.3. So, I mean, again, he's missed a lot of time this season. Tuesday was his first rehab start. So I'm not going to, take all these with a grain of salt. But if you don't have command, you're not going to really be able to do much else. And so moving into some positives for Mets pitching, which has been a rarity this season. Yesterday's game, June 17th, the Mets did pick up a win in the series finale, avoided the sweep. They blew out the Reds. The score of that game was 9-1. And Nolan McLean has returned to form. Nolan McLean looks like Nolan McLean again. He has been a wagon. His start yesterday, 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. His deepest outing since May 14th versus Detroit, where he also went 7 innings. His first time only walking one batter since May 8th. So the command was really good. And he has a 1.64 ERA over his last 4 starts. So, I mean, for a team that is, I think it's fair to say that the Mets are pitching deprived. So for a team that is greatly pitching deprived, having a guy like McLean come out and return to form is exactly what you need right now.
That's sensational stuff. I love to see it. I think a team that's already sort of mediocre, having a guy that you can confirm will give you a really solid start slash W every, what's that, 4 games? Is that how that would shake out? 5 games, whatever it is.
Every 5 days, yeah.
Yeah, so every 5 days you have a guy that can go on the mound and give you this kind of performance. That's a good building block to start being less mediocre and start winning more ball games.
And I mean, Noel McLean obviously had a recent rough patch this, or not recent by this point, but he had a rough patch this season, had 2 really bad starts back to back. And I mean, we talked about it, and I think we all kind of said the same thing about this is just going to happen to a young pitcher. I mean, these things happen to baseball players. It's a matter of whether or not he can dig himself out of that hole. And, he appears to have had to. And again, I'm looking at that 1.64 ERA over his last 4 starts. I mean, Bob, like you said, for a team that's struggled like the Mets have this season, having a guy can be a reliable workhorse and give you a chance to win every 5 days is one of the most valuable assets you can have, if not the most valuable asset.
100%. That also gets you pretty close to not losing series. You don't have to sweep every series. You don't have to. I think the best is not getting swept every series. That prevents you from doing that. So you're close to splitting series and winning series. So as long as you're doing that, you're going to be eventually breaching the gap from being 500 constantly and starting to actually win ball games and be able to catch one of these NL teams that are kind of cruising for a wild card spot.
And Bob, it's funny you should mention that because, I mean, obviously not getting swept is the bare minimum. That's what teams should strive for. But all three series that the Mets have lost this month, they lost in Seattle to open the month, and they've lost to St. Louis at home, and then they just lost 2-3 to Cincinnati. But all of those games, they lost the first two and then found a way to salvage the finale. So I mean, obviously, if that's the position you have to be in, like if you do lose the last two games, at least you can, or if you do lose the first two games at the very least you can do is handle business for the last one. And the Mets, at the very least, have done that just fine.
Yeah, 100%. We talk about that a lot when, as college ballers as you guys are, and a college employee as I am, we play a ton of double headers because that's just how it rolls, and it's just what you got to deal with in college. And a lot of times we talk about if you're gonna split a double header, you want to win the second one, and or even if a lot of times when you're on the road as well, if you're gonna split a double header, you want to win the second one because it looks a lot different. Going home on a 1 game winning streak, you get a long ride home. You took a dub. You guys can hang out, have fun. It's a lot different than when you're on a 1 game losing streak, you lost and you got a long drive home. So kind of the same logic here. It is nice to not be getting swept, and it's also fine, I think, to be winning that last game on your way out. That works.
Yeah.
And that is
Oh, my bad. Sorry. And oh, real quick, Bob. One ex college baller. But no. We did a lot of that this past year, actually. Not to make this all about the Mount St. Mary College Knights, but we would lose the first game and then find a way to win the second game in the rare occurrence that we'd actually win a conference game. So it is a lot about just salvaging the series, and that the Mets have done a good job of that
We were
as of late.
we were allergic to sweeps this past year for some reason. Too many times we would lose game one in like some crappy way, and then go nuclear game two. So that's the last of what I'll mention of the Knights.
bringing it back into professional baseball. I mean, Bob, I really like your point. If you have to win only one game, you want it to be the last one because I mean, obviously, a big team win in Cincinnati. Vibes are good on the plane to Philadelphia, and that game last night was a great team win. I mean, we already talked about how good McLean was. There's no point in elaborating on that further, just because there's not much you can say other than that he was good. But the offense was ridiculous. Six different Mets scored at least one run, 9 runs on 15 hits for the Mets, and the Mets' two big ballers, Bo Bichette and Juan Soto, combined for 6 hits. Bo Bichette last night, 3 for 4 with a walk and an RBI, scored 3 times. Juan Soto, 3 for 5 with a double, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs. So, I mean, just a great team win all around. McLean shoved the guys you needed to show up, showed up, and the Mets win by 8 runs. The final score of that game was 9-1.
It's the winning formula for prolonged winning this year. It seems to be what it is.
And so, throwing it to our discussion at the beginning of the episode, we've talked about for as long as the Mets, or for as long as we've done Mets episodes for the month of June, we've talked about how important this month of June is going to be. That point still stands. And I would argue that the most important stretch of the Mets season starts tonight. They open a 3 game set versus the Phillies in Philadelphia, and 7 of the Mets' next 11 games are against the Phillies. The Mets come into today 7.5 games back of the Phillies for second place in the National League East. The Phillies are stuck in that second wild card spot. They are up a game and a half on the Padres. I mean, this is a gauntlet. And so, again, 7 of the Mets' next 11 are against the Phillies. That game in the middle is a 4 game set at home versus the Chicago Cubs, an extremely reputable team. The Cubs, we talked about at the beginning of the episode, are currently tied for that last wild card spot. So, I mean, this 3 game set with the Phillies upcoming, they play tonight, Friday off, and then 2 weekend games. But I mean, this is the start of it. The Mets have to figure out a way to take 2 out of 3, maybe even sweep. I mean, I'm not going to say they are, but if you're the Mets, obviously that's what you want to strive for. And it's not gonna come easy to the Mets. I mean, tonight's pitching matchup, Sean Manaea versus Aaron Nola. But Saturday is textbook. Saturday is what you want to watch the games for. It is Freddie Peralta versus Christopher Sanchez. Christopher Sanchez, I think, not a stretch to say that he's the National League Cy Young frontrunner. And this is a gauntlet. If you're the Mets, nothing is going to come easy. Nothing's going to come easy. You're stuck in a little bit of a hole, but there's no better way to get out of a hole than punch your way out of it. And the Mets have the perfect chance to start that at least tonight.
Hollywood, baby. I do want to mention, I know it's not obviously not easy to come back from 5.5 games back in the wild card chase, but I do want to also mention that of the teams that they're chasing, obviously the Phillies ahead of them in the division right now. Run differential isn't massive, but it's also just an intriguing thing to look at. The Phillies have a negative 18 run differential, and they're up as far as they are in the Mets. And the Mets, behind the Reds in the standings here for wild card running, the Reds are a negative 52 on run differential. So that kind of shocked me a little bit to look at. But nevertheless, it doesn't really decide everything. The Mets definitely do need to lock in against the Phillies, which kind of pains me to say, but we get paid to talk about the Mets, not the Phillies. And you just got to go attack the pitching, honestly, in this series. The Phillies, they're not going to light up the scoreboard. They're going to keep runs off the board. So you need to flip that and get runs on the board.
So the Mets have not yet announced a projected starter for Sunday, but I mean, this is not going to come easy. I mean, they have to face Christopher Sanchez on Saturday. Zach Wheeler is projected to start for the Phillies on Sunday. So, I mean, it's not going to be easy. This is going to be a slugfest. I mean, this is a heavyweight fight, two National League East rivals. You couldn't ask for anything more. But if you're the Mets, I mean, you're playing a team you don't like. You're playing a team that's well ahead of you in the division, and you're facing their top two guys. I mean, if I'm the Mets, if I'm a Mets fan, I want this. I want the challenge. Because if we do an episode next week and the Mets end up winning this series, I mean, that is a huge start for them, especially taking out, the Phillies' top two starters.
You got to start somewhere, and there's no better time than the present. So yeah, I can. As the pundits currently on the show, outside of me being a fan, yes, I do agree with the sentiment that you just got to go attack them, and this would be a huge, huge launch pad for them to get going onto a proper winning season here if they can go do something big in this series.
And to avoid sounding like a broken record, I'll just quickly rephrase what I said earlier. I think they need to start now, and especially against obviously a division rival. Goes without saying you need these games. So I think bare minimum 2 out of 3 is necessary for them.
I mean, again, the Mets' next 11, I'm not even going to argue. I'm just going to say that these are the most important games of the Mets season so far. Obviously, they have the three games in Philadelphia, and then it's an 8-game homestand. They play the Cubs 4 times, and then the Phillies come back into town for another 4 games. And so my question now to you guys is, the Mets are 7-8 in the month of June. They're 8 games under 500 right now. Is realistically in these next 11 games, how well do the Mets need to do to stay afloat?
How old do they have to do to stay afloat? Well, I'm going to continue to harp on the fact that with division rivals, they need to be winning the series. And as long as overall, if we're talking stay afloat, overall, as long as they're hovering around the 500 mark, I don't see a problem with that. I think, obviously, I don't want them to just stay afloat, but if they have to, I think bare minimum is win your division series, and overall be around 500 at least.
I think they need to win more than half of these games from this big stretch. At least in that after this Philly series, at least in that stretch alone, where they get 8 games before the break at home. The difference between being 4-4 and 5-3 means 4-4 they're negative in June. 5-3 means they're positive in June. So I think you need to be over 500, quite frankly, going into this break. This is, as we've stressed a lot of times, this is huge. They really need to lock in here and just put their nose to the grindstone and just get it done. However, if you're winning 1-0 for 3 straight games, who cares? It's a win. They don't ask how, they ask how many.
100%. And I think you guys are both exactly right. I mean, the floor, the bare minimum for the Mets right now, find a way to go 6-5, find a way to win more games than you lose. I think if I'm the Mets, I mean, obviously you have to shoot higher. I think 8-3 would be perfect for the Mets. If the Mets go 8-3, I'm not going to say they will, but if the Mets go 8-3, they get to 41-44, and 3 games under 500 is obviously a lot more manageable than 8 games under 500, and 7 of those games are against the Phillies. And so, we talked about earlier in the episode being able to control your own destiny. The Mets can a little bit. They're playing a team ahead of them in the division. They're playing 2 teams ahead of them in the playoff picture. If you can find a way to put a dent in these 11 games, 8-3 is optimistic. I think that would be perfect for the Mets. I'm going to say, I mean, obviously 500 is good, but I think 500, goes back into the discussion we've been having really all episode, just about treading water. So if I'm the Mets right now, I think you need to win at least 7 of 11.
I can get with that. Gotta keep it in a winning state of mind. 7 of 11 is, I think that gets it done. Quite frankly, yeah. I don't have a lot to add to that. You just gotta win more than you lose here. You have to win more than half the games. I think that's the biggest sentiment. To me, at least, I feel like you're in a really bad shape if you go 500 or below in this stretch.
And yeah, I mean, if the Mets do end up finishing under 500 over these next 11 games, I mean, I'm not going to say that sinks the boat, but I mean, let's say they go 4-7. That puts you at 37 in 48. That's 11 games under 500. That is pretty hard to come back from. So, I mean, again, we've all already kind of said it, so there's no point in beating a dead horse. But if you're the Mets, you just have to find a way to go at least 500. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is all we have for today's episode. As always, I'm Lucas Stackpole, joined by Peter Papalardo and Bob Hauk, Bob from Philly. Thank you, as always, for listening, and we will see you all for the next one.